Hi, this is Magdi Isa, your teacher for Anatomy and Physiology, Bio 201 Lab. This video, just like all of my other videos, is intended to be only for Grand Canyon University students who are enrolled in one of my classes. Please do not share this video with any other students in order to not to violate any of the copyrights. So today we are going to discuss connective tissue, and this is the third lab. So connective tissue is made of three main parts. It's made of cells, ground substance, and fibers. The ground substance and fibers, both of them are called matrix. So the connective tissue is composed of cells and matrix. And the definition of connective tissue is basically living cells in a non-living matrix. And this matrix is being produced or made by the main cell type of this tissue. So let's start by defining these three terms: the cells, the fibers, and the ground substance of the connective tissue. Cells, there is one primary cell type of the connective tissue that produces the matrix. This doesn't mean that there are not other cells. So any connective tissue could have more than one cell type, but the main one is the one that secretes the matrix. So for example, we have fibroblasts, we have chondroplasts, we have osteoblasts, and we have blood cells. So the fibroblasts, they secrete the ground substance of many types of connective tissue. The chondro means cartilage, and blasts means immature cell. So these immature cells of the cartilage secrete the matrix of the cartilage. The same for osteo means bone. So osteoblasts secrete the matrix of the bone. The only exception here that I want you to know, the blood cells do not secrete or produce the matrix of the blood, which is the plasma. Next is the fibers. We have three main types of fibers. We have collagen fibers, reticular fibers, and elastic fibers. The collagen fibers are the strongest types of fibers, and they produce or resist tension. They resist tension. We have reticular fibers, which is actually a subtype of collagen fibers. They didn't know that before, so they gave it a different name, but it's actually just a different subtype of the collagen fibers. And the last type is going to be elastic fibers, and these ones, as the name implies, they are responsible for recoil after stretching, so they're very, very flexible. So I want you to know here that collagen fibers resist tension, and elastic fibers are very flexible. These are the ones for stretching. Then we have the ground substance. The ground substance is basically some jelly-like substance. It is water that contains both sugar and protein. The function of the ground substance is cushion. It's mainly cushion. So you have a jelly-like substance that's present inside almost all types of connective tissue. It just sometimes have more of the ground substance, sometimes have very little ground substance. So if you have more ground substance, then you have more cushion. If you have less ground substance, you have less cushion. And again, an exception to that, the plasma is not produced by blood cells. So this is the classification of connective tissues. We have what's called connective tissue proper, and we have other types of connective tissue that they actually don't have a common name. The other types are cartilage, bone, and blood. Then the connective tissue proper is classified into two subtypes or subclasses: loose and dense. The loose could be areolar, adipose, and reticular. And the dense is either dense regular or irregular, and these two have collagen fibers predominantly, or elastic, and as the name implies, these ones have elastic fibers predominantly. And when it comes to the reticular, well, they also have reticular fibers predominantly. So let's start first with the loose connective tissue. The loose areolar connective tissue, it has all kinds of fibers. They're all loose because they have a lot of ground substance that is secreted by fibroblasts. So what are the types of cells that we have in loose areolar connective tissue? We have fibroblasts, macrophages, mast cells, and white blood cells. So what's the main type? Fibroblasts. How do I know it's the main type? Well, because it is the one that secretes the matrix. So even though you have macrophages, mast cells, and white blood cells, none of them secretes the matrix of the loose areolar connective tissue. Where do you find that? We find it in the underlying epithelial tissue. And you will see an example of that when we cover the skin. And its main function is support and cushion. So here is my loose areolar connective tissue. I have elastic fibers, these dark colored ones, and I have a lot of collagen fibers. And as we said, reticular fibers are actually a subtype of collagen fibers. That's why we won't be able to see them unless we use a specific stain, which is not used here. And then these nuclei are actually cells, but I cannot see the boundaries of the cells. I can only see the nuclei. So these are my fibroblasts. So if you see a picture like that on the exam, this is loose areolar connective tissue. You have fibers that are completely separated from each other. They have very wide spaces between them, and these spaces are the ground substance. The next is the adipose tissue, which is actually the fat. So adipose is just fat cells. So where do you find that? You find it in the hypodermis, or the fat under the skin, also known as subcutaneous tissue or subcutaneous fascia. You find it around the kidney, you find it behind your eyeballs, you find it in the abdomen and the breasts. What's the function of the adipose tissue? It's a reserve for food, fuel. It also insulates the heat, so it protects you from losing heat or gaining heat from the environment. And it's also support and protection of organs, like around the kidney, so it protects your kidney. So if you have somebody hits you in the kidney, there is a space where the kidney can't just move, and there's a cushion around it. What's the main cells? Of course, it's the adipocytes that are closely packed. So this is my adipose tissue. So this is one cell, and what do you see in this cell? Not a lot, just a nucleus that's pushed to the side, and inside the cell there is one big drop of fat. So this is a droplet of fat that's filling all the cell. Nothing more than this. And you have some little ground substance in between, but all of this picture is just fat, that is fat droplets filling the cells. The next type is reticular connective tissue. Reticular connective tissue, as the name implies, has reticular fibers. It has also reticular cells, which is a subtype of fibroblasts. Where do you find this? It's actually almost exclusively only for the lymphoid organs. So if you hear reticular connective tissue, you need to associate this with lymphoid organs. Example of that is the lymph nodes and spleen. So this is a special staining, and this is my spleen here. The special staining shows the reticular fibers, and as you can see, they are very thick, dark fibers. And in between them, you have cells. So this is reticular fibers. These are white blood cells. So we are done with the loose connective tissue. Now we're going to the dense connective tissue. That could be dense irregular, dense regular, or elastic. Again, the dense irregular and irregular, they both have collagen. So the dense irregular fibers. So we have irregularly arranged collagen fibers. The substance is again secreted by the fibroblasts, and the stroma, the cells are also fibroblasts. What's the function? Function is this one withstands tension, but it withstands tension in different directions. This is unlike to the dense regular ones, which can withstand tension in one direction only. We find this in the dermis of the skin, and let's see a picture of that. So these all are collagen fibers. You can barely see any matrix. So this is your shoulder joint, and this is the capsule around the shoulder joint. So you have collagen fibers running in all different directions. Some of them are heading towards the corner here, some are traveling transversely, some are going down. So in places like a joint capsule, in places like your skin, dermis, these areas you can move in different directions. So we need to be able to withstand tension in different directions. So let's compare this to the dense regular connective tissue, where everything is the same, but we have the collagen is just traveling in one direction. So where do we find this? We find this in the tendons and ligaments, because tendons and ligaments are stressed only in one direction. So as you can see, very nice, very neat fibers. They are all parallel to each other. They have some cells that are squeezed between them. There is barely any matrix here, and you find this in the tendons and the ligaments, because when you make a tension on the tendon and ligament, the tension is just in one direction, so there's no point of having fibers running in different directions if the function of that structure is just to withstand tension in one direction only. Next, we have elastic connective tissue. Elastic fibers predominate, and their function is mainly recoil. We find these in the walls of large arteries and also in the bronchial tubes, because these ones will expand and will contract. So here is the aorta, which is the largest blood vessel that we have, and as you can see, it's full of elastic fibers. There's not a lot of matrix here, and there's not a lot of cells here also. So why do we have to have elastic fibers in the aorta? Because when the heart contracts, it pushes a large volume of blood in the aorta, so the aorta needs to expand. So this is like a rubber band, so that will expand, and then after the aortic valve closes, this aorta will contract, pushing the blood forward. So this is the main reason we have this elastic connective tissue. We have a type of connective tissue called embryonic connective tissue. These ones are either mesenchymal or mucous connective tissue. Mesenchymal is full of stem cells, embryonic stem cells. So this is all. Those two types are only in embryos. We don't have any of those two types. Here is an example of the mesenchyme, where you have cells that are loosely separated, and this is an example of the mucoid connective tissue, in which cells are surrounded by a lot of mucus. These two types of embryonic connective tissue, I will not make any stress on them on the exam, so you might want to just know them for now, but I'm not going to make any questions on them on the exam. Next type is, we have the others. So we have cartilage, bone, and blood. So let's start with the cartilage. The cartilage is firm, flexible tissue. And I want you to know that most of the cartilage is surrounded by what's called perichondrium. Peri means around, chondrium means cartilage. So perichondrium means a tissue that's around the cartilage. What's the main component of the matrix in cartilage? Is actually water. It's water. The cartilage has no blood vessels, no nerves. What's the reason for that? Well, think about the cartilage in your joints. Do you want to be able to have sensation from the joints as you move them all the time? Of course not. You don't want to feel that sensation. It will be very annoying. Also, if you have blood vessels, and these joints might stretch, so you might break these blood vessels. That's why we don't even have blood vessels in the cartilage. So how does the cartilage get its blood? It actually takes blood via, or takes nutrients via diffusion from the underlying tissue, which is in this case bone. Cells of the blood. Two types. We have the chondroblasts, which are the ones that makes the matrix. When these ones become older, when they mature, we call them chondrocyte. And these chondrocytes are the ones that lie in the lacunae. So these ones actually are in spaces. These spaces called lacunae. So we'll see a picture of that. We have three types of cell of cartilage. We have hyaline cartilage, elastic cartilage, and fibrocartilage. So let's see the first one, hyaline cartilage. So the hyaline cartilage has what? It has lots of matrix. It doesn't have a lot of collagen, and this matrix is hyaline, means glassy in appearance. Where do you find hyaline cartilage? Where you need cushion. Okay, so it has a lot of cushion. So you find this locations is fetal skeleton. So all of your skeleton as a fetus, before it becomes a bone, it was actually cartilage model. Then, after that, it became bone. So you start out cartilage, all of your bones except the skull bones and the clavicle, it was first hyaline cartilage. We find it also at the end of long bones. We find it in the costal cartilages, as we will see. You can find it in the nose, trachea, and larynx as well. So here is my costal cartilages. What does costal mean? Costal means rib. So here is my ribs, and these are the costal cartilages that are attached to the ribs. So these are all hyaline cartilage. Well, let's see these cells. Well, these cells at the beginning, they were called chondroblasts, and they were secreting this matrix. When these cells became trapped in the matrix, now they can move nowhere. Now they're just trapped. They're almost maintaining their lives, but they're not producing a lot of matrix. Now we call them chondrocytes. So the cells that are active and producing the matrix are called chondroblasts, and once they get trapped in the matrix that they have produced, we'll call them chondrocytes. And this is the same thing for the bone as well. So I want you to know this picture very well. Next is my elastic cartilage. We have a lot of elastic fibers, and this is in the places where you need a lot of flexibility, like your ear pinna. So here's your ear pinna, and as you can see, we have special staining here that stains elastic fibers, and we have chondrocytes inside the lacunae. So if you compare this one to the previous one, look at that glassy appearance here, and look at this appearance that you can see the elastic fibers. The next one is the fibrocartilage, and the fibrocartilage is actually having lots of collagen fibers. So the difference between the fibro means fibers, and fibro stands for collagen. So fibrocartilage is something between cartilage and between the dense, regular connective tissue. Okay, so it's just kind of in between. So it has the property of the dense, regular connective tissue because it has collagen fibers, and it's also cartilage because it has the cartilage cells in matrix. So you find this in areas where you need a lot of tensile strength to absorb shocks. Example of that is the intervertebral discs, the symphysis pubis, and the discs of the knee joints. So let's take a look here. So here are my cells, and as you can see, these cells run in a file. These are my chondrocytes, and in between the chondrocytes, all this blue is actually collagen fibers. So there's a lot of collagen fibers here. Where do we find this? Intervertebral discs is one example. And why do you need all this fibers? Because as we said, collagen fibers resist compression. The next type is the bone. The bone has the calcified matrix. So this is the only one that has calcified matrix. We never had any matrix that was calcified before. And it has three different types of cells. We have the osteoblasts. These are the ones that secrete collagen fibers. And when they get trapped in the lacunae, which is basically the spaces where these cells reside, it's called now osteocytes. And we have a different kind of cell called osteoclasts. These ones are the ones that destroy the bone. These ones eat the bone. So we have osteoblasts. They're the young cells that make the bone matrix. When they become older, we call them osteocyte. And we have ones that are actually destroying or eating or resorbing the bone. These ones are called osteoclasts. So what is the function of the bone? It supports and protects organs. And it's also attachment for muscles and tendons, and attachments for ligaments as well. Is the site where you make your blood cells, and it stores calcium and fat. There are two different types of bones. We have the compact bone, which is this one that you can see nothing through it. It's also called cortical bone. And we have the spongy bone, also called cancellous or trabecular bone. So the bone is had some kind of organization that's different from all other tissues. We have what's called an osteon. Osteon is basically the basic unit of the bone, and as you can see, osteon is made of these circles. We call them lamellae. So these circles are called lamellae, and inside these circles there is a hole. There is actually a tube. So this tube travels all the way down, as you can see here. It is parallel to the axis of long bone, and we call these tubes or canals, we call them Haversian Canal. We have also tubes that are perpendicular to the long axis of the bone. We call them the perforating or Volkmann's canals. And we have two types of lamellae. We have lamellae that are completely rounded and they are surrounding the Haversian canals. And we have other lamellae that surround the whole bone. These ones are called circumferential lamellae. The bone, just like the cartilage, also is covered by a tissue called periosteum. In the periosteum, we have the blood vessels traveling, and we have fibers that connect the periosteum to the bone. We call these fibers Sharpie's fibers. Sharpie's fibers. Okay, let's take a closer look. So we just cut a quarter of one of the osteons, or the building blocks of bones. Now in the osteon we have lamellae. So this is one lamella, second lamella, third lamella. These lamellae are made by lacunae that are connected to each other. So this is a lacuna. Here is another lacuna here. There's a third lacuna here. Inside these lacunae, you have the osteocytes. Now these osteocytes are trapped inside the lacunae, so they no longer able to go anywhere, and they do not secrete a lot of matrix. And in between these lacunae, there is connections. These are called canaliculi. So every one of these lacunae has a canaliculus that connects lacunae together. And what is the value of having these connections? Well, these cells are far away from blood. They cannot get any diffusion from blood because the bone is calcified. This is basically impermeable to any diffusion. The arteries will supply nutrients to this cell, and from this cell the nutrients can travel to this cell, then from this cell to this one. And the same way for the waste products. The waste products are going to go from this cell to this one, and back to the vein. So I hope this is clear. Let's go to the next one. So we have a microscopic picture here. This is my Haversian Canal. Every one of these is an osteocyte in a lacuna. And osteocytes, as you can see, they have these canaliculi that are connecting them to each other. And of course, every one of these circles is a lamella. And we said that there is lamella in the Haversian system, and we have also circumferential lamella, and we have even lamella in between. We call these interstitial lamella. So the interstitial lamella are basically lamellae that are not taking any organization. They're just between 2 or 3 or 4 different Haversian systems. Again, here is a cell. Here is my cells here, osteocytes. These are my lamellae, and these are my central canals. So the osteon, or also called Haversian system, contains the lamellae, contains the central canal, also known as Haversian canals. It has perforating canals, also known as Volkmann's canals, which provide a pathway for blood vessels to travel between different osteons. And we have canaliculi, which connects neighboring lacunae. Also, we can see here the periosteum. As we said, it's the connective tissue that covers the bone, and it's connected to the bone via sharp piece fibers. I want you to know the periosteum and the definition of both periosteum and perichondrium very well. The last type is blood, and the blood, as we said, it's made of plasma that's not secreted by cells, and we have the blood cells, which are either white blood cells, red blood cells, or platelets. So here is one picture of a blood. This is my red blood cells. These are both white blood cells. I'm not going to ask you at this point to differentiate between the different types of white blood cells. Just know that these are white blood cells. And these small ones are platelets, and in between we have the plasma. There is also lymph. Lymph is so similar to the blood, but it carries heavier materials than the blood. The blood has plasma, which is thin compared to the lymph. Lymph carries more of the fat, and the lymph also travels between the lymphoid systems. And this is as much as I want you to know about the lymph. Now it's your time to quiz yourself. I hope that you have basic understanding at this point of the connective tissue. If you have any questions, let me know in the class. Have a great day.